Bonjour, Paris RB. I'm really honored to be here speaking with you. It's been a great event. I'm really enjoying it. Lots of good talks. And let me introduce myself. My name is Ruan Brandão. I'm a software engineer from São Paulo, Brazil. It's really good to be here. I'm currently studying to get a bachelor's degree in philosophy. So if all goes well by the end of 2022, I'll be a philosopher with a diploma. And I'm also an amateur musician. I like to play music, to relax, just for fun. And you can find me at Twitter at Ruan Brandão. And I'm here to talk to you about ethics in software development. And to start, I'd like to define what I mean when I say the word ethics. So the definition I'm using here is that ethics is a branch of philosophy that involves systematizing, defending, and recommending concepts of right and wrong conduct. And this is a fancy way to say that ethics is a way to help us define what is right and what is wrong. And one thing that I like to point out here is that ethics is a branch of philosophy, so I consider this a talk about philosophy. And it can seem, at the first moment, it can seem a bit weird to have a philosophy talk in a technology event. But for me, it makes sense because for me, in the end of the day, software is not about code, it's more about people. And it also may seem weird to say that, but I like to illustrate my point with this. This is a screenshot of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. It's one of my favorite games. It won Game of the Year award at 2017. And for me, it's a very good piece of software because this game is a software. And I think it's a very good software because I like to play it. It made me feel part of a different world. It entertained me for a lot of hours. It had beautiful views, good music, and everything that for me made this a great software. And none of the aspects that made me think that it's a good software is about the code. I have no idea how is the code of this game. And I'll probably never know unless I go work at the company that made it. But my point is that software exists for a reason, and code is just a means to get to this end. That software exists to solve problems, and by no means I'm saying that code is not important. No, code is very, very important. And we must also strive to make very good code. But at the end of the day, software exists to solve problems. It can be a problem for one person. It can be a problem for a lot of persons. It can be a development problem. It can be a product problem. It can be a payment problem. It can be an entertainment need. Even when software is art, as in the example that I said in the game, that at least for me is a kind of art, this also exists to meet a need that we as human beings, we like art, and we need art, and software that is considered art exists to meet those needs, to solve those problems that we have. So if software exists to solve problems, then to understand problems is a very important skill for us to be good software engineers and software developers. Because if you want to solve a problem, then we need to understand how this problem works, how it affects people, so we know how we can solve it. And we can solve a problem for us or for other people. So we also need empathy. We need the ability to at least try to see the world by someone else's experience, because this can help us understand the problems those different persons and those different people have so we can solve it. And this means empathy with the people using the softwares that we write. So I make sure that they're having a good experience, that we're solving their problems. It means empathy for our coworkers and the team we're in, so they can understand and maintain the code we write, and even empathy for myself in the future. Because if I write some code today and I don't do a good job, if I look at the same code in a year, I will not understand anything. So to have this skill of trying to understand the problems that I don't have right now is a key skill so I can develop software effectively. And today, especially today in the times that we're living, software is really big. Software affects billions of people every day, and it has great impacts on the lives of those people. And we write software. So if we're writing a software that impacts someone, we have an ethical responsibility about how this software is going to impact someone. Like, we want to have a good impact on the lives of people that use the software we make. And we have a responsibility if this doesn't happen. And to illustrate those points, I'd like to use some examples. For instance, uh, Facebook and other Facebook-owned companies are going through lots of problems because of usage of data and some behaviors of the software that they're made. And even in elections all around the world, softwares like Facebook and WhatsApp played major parts in those elections, including in Brazil, where I live. It was literally a game changer, and the way those softwares were used had a direct impact in the political scenario of the place where I live and in the place where lots of people live. So there is a really direct and big impact of those kinds of software. And other example I like to point is the Dieselgate, Volkswagen's Dieselgate that happened a few years ago, where Volkswagen made on purpose a software to trick some government tests to ensure that the cars were not emitting a large amount of polluting gases. So this software made the car know when a test was being made or not, and when the car was being tested, it would emit a small amount of polluting gases, and when it was not being tested, it would emit up to 40 times more polluting gases. And this was made on purpose, and this was made with software. So because of the software, someone like me, someone like you wrote, lots of people had breathing issues, had a larger chance of having all kinds of diseases. The quality of lives of those people got lower. So in this scenario, what is the responsibility of the person writing the code? Because in a lot of cases, especially those with big companies, in a lot of cases, it's not the person that writes the code that decides what's going to be made or not. Sometimes we have teams and chains of command. So we can, in some cases, write code that we don't know what it's going to do. But we even if we don't know what the software is going to do, we're still writing the code. And I'm not saying that, and in some cases, writing this code can have legal consequences on us. And when I say that, I'm not saying that just because we can have legal consequences by the code we write, that it is wrong because something can be right and illegal, and something can be wrong and legal. And even this concept of right and wrong can vary from different societies on different times and etc. But if we can like get arrested for writing code, we should be aware of that because it's a risk that we're taking. And it's a very, very important risk that we cannot ignore. And to help us make decisions of if we're doing the right thing or the wrong thing when we write code, we need to have a broad vision of the software we are making. For instance, if I look at this code, can I know if it's morally right or morally wrong? Can anyone here look at the code and say, okay, this code is morally right or morally wrong? And I personally think it's very difficult to do that because this is just a small piece of code that it's hard to understand without context, and it's hard to understand without knowing the larger concept of what the project is meant to do, in what software it's going to be used, what we want to do when we run these lines of code. And this is a reconstruction translated to Ruby of one small part of the code that Volkswagen used on Dieselgate. So by looking at the code, I can tell if it's right or wrong. But if I know the context, the larger image, I can know if it's right or if it's wrong. So we, as professionals, need to have this vision, so we are better informed and we can make better moral decisions about our work. And having this kind of problem happening now brings us lots of dilemmas. And dilemmas are not something new, like the humans always have struggled with dilemmas throughout history, but today we're in a very delicate position that the philosopher Yuval Noah Harari puts in a very good way, that for millennia, a lot of dilemmas were just thought experiments. They were completely theoretical. And now, with software, those dilemmas are becoming practical decisions that can affect the real world. For instance, there is one classical problem that is the trolley problem that is represented by this image. So imagine you see a train coming on the rails, and there are 5 workers working on the rails, and if nothing happens, the train's gonna hit them and kill them. They're not hearing the train, they don't have time to escape. So if the train just follows its course, it's gonna kill those 5 people. But there's a lever, and if you pull that lever, the train is going to take the other rail, the lower rail, and kill just 1 person instead of 5. So in this scenario, would you pull the lever or not? And I'm not looking for an answer, this is just a question. So you think about it, and there's no right answer or wrong answer. This is the nature of a dilemma. It's hard to answer one. And this, until a few years ago, was only a theoretical thought experiment, but now this kind of dilemma is getting real with self-driving cars. So with self-driving cars, we can have in the real world a scenario where a software needs to decide if it's going to kill 1 person or 5 persons, if it's going to kill 1 baby or an elderly person, if it's going to kill 1 person that is on the street or 1 person that bought the car. And these dilemmas are hard, and we have to think of them right now because these technologies are already a reality. And our our decisions when developing those algorithms and writing these codes can get very serious and have a big impact on the real world. And to say that, it's important to, to note this quote from Cathy O'Neill. It's a mathematician from the USA, and she says that algorithms are opinions embedded in code. And she says that to counter the argument that algorithms are unbiased and neutral and fair because they're not. To say that is just a marketing trick to make us trust algorithms. But in truth, algorithms just take some decisions and automate them. So algorithms gives us a lot of power and a lot of scale because one person choosing if someone can or cannot get a loan can affect one person at a time. But an algorithm that does that, using the same parameters and have the same decision, can affect millions of people at the same time. And our opinions, our biases, and what we think do not disappear and we develop algorithms. Those biases go to the code and get hidden behind this wall of the black box algorithm. And this does impact our lives. And to try to solve or mitigate this problem, we need different people working together to solve the problems, to try to neutralize some of the biases we have in some algorithms. For instance, there was a case that got quite popular on the internet of a soap dispenser, an automatic soap dispenser, that didn't work with people with dark skin. So to demonstrate, one man tries to wash his hands, and he has dark skin, and the soap dispenser simply doesn't work with his skin. He has to get a paper towel and put it under the dispenser so he dispenses the soap. And I don't know how was the team that developed this software, but probably there was no people with dark skin on this team, and nobody thought of that because, okay, if it works for me, then it works. And this may seem like as a trivial example. Okay, so someone can't wash their hands. Like it's important, but it may still seem like a small problem, but this escalates. And there were already cases of self-driving cars that were more likely to hit dark-skinned people than light-skinned people because of the same technological issue, but on a bigger scale. So the problem of not visualizing what kinds of problems a software can have when it is used by different people can have very serious consequences on the real world. So to mitigate that, we need different people developing software. And so, in other words, we need diversity. Like, diversity is not just something good, it's something we need, something that we as an industry need to survive and to keep doing good stuff. And when I say good stuff or morally right or morally wrong, that's completely my opinion. I strongly believe in that, but you can disagree because with morals, that's the way it goes. So you can feel free to disagree with me, but I believe that we need diversity to do good things as an industry. And another point that I like to make is that, at least in Brazil, where I come from, a software development career is a very good way of achieving upward mobility, of getting in a better place financially and socially, because it's a profession that's new, that has a lot of jobs, that has good salaries, that doesn't have great physical restraints. So if someone wants to have a software development career, this person can have a software development career. Most of the blocks this person can find on their way to becoming a software developer can be imposed by the community not welcoming those different types of people. And we need those people to help us be better as an industry. And this will be good for us, and this will be good for the people that want to develop software. So my final message is that software is for everybody. I strongly believe that software is for everybody. Everyone that wants to have a software development career should be able to do that, and everyone that wants to use the software should be able to do it. And we, as software development professionals, should make sure that this happens. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, so no question.
And I'll be here in the conference today and tomorrow at the start of the day. So if anyone has any commentary, agrees or disagrees with what I said here, please feel free to reach me and we can talk about it. Thank you.
Thank you.